Good morning, my fellow yogic travelers. I'm mighty glad to be alive today, and I hope that you are too as we continue to live, laugh, love, learn, linger, and live the life we love. It's Thursday. It's going to be a long one. I got a story at the end of this instead of at the beginning. So let's start off with our disappointing affirmations. We only have a few of them left. From now on, I will only make good decisions. Honestly, I shouldn't even be allowed to make any decisions on my own. All right, for my journal writing friends, where are you still a rebel? Everybody still has they thumb their nose behind the teacher's back. You do things where no one can see. So tell me, where do you still keep that spirit alive? Or where have you squashed it? And I'll tell you how I keep my rebel alive. All right, now my teacher always says, go home and practice right away. That will naturally and automatically teach you the power that it gives you until your body is ringing and singing the bell of yoga. People will feel it in your presence. So hit the mat again and again. Now, my rabbi taught me that aging isn't a problem. It's the images we have of aging, the expectations of what we think will happen when we age. That's the problem. And I do have to say that faced with the decline over the last 10 years or so of my what used to be youthful vigor and physical abilities, as I try to deal with, face, and answer both the acute and chronic illnesses, the closing of my life possibilities, the ending of my career, but also the new chances that open up a different kind of mastery as my aging proceeds. And I've learned that my core identity, who I really am, my innermost self, which means my essence, doesn't depend upon my outward form. Who I am is beyond all such limitation, and this is the teaching that the elders have given me, and this is the teaching that I'm passing on to you. So cynicism, pessimism, nihilism, they all lack the vision, and it also shows a wounded soul who's repressed their own creativity and is afraid of leisure, where our culture whips you into workaholism, work addiction, drives you to work and then spend. I say instead, find an art form as your language and express what happens deep inside of you, whether it's beauty or grief. And since spirit is looking for the best it can find, that's you. Don't ask, are you he who's to come, or should we look for another? You're the one. So when you open your mouth, speak to edify, speak to exhort, speak to console. Do it from a cosmic rather than an individual point of view, and adjust your life to the bigger life that's coming. Which means you get hooked on the developmental side, not the phenomenal side. Don't look for crazy experiences. Just keep doing the work. Develop your skill set. See what that does to you and your environment. And of course, always when you're going to do the affirmations, you have to convey the idea to a relaxed and receptive mind, where you reduce all effort to a minimum. And then in ways that you know not of, the wonder-working power of your own subconscious mind will outpicture for you according to your belief. According to your belief, be it done unto you. No, act as though it's true, and it will be true. And then you'll find out when people ask, what is joy? It's the pure positive energy coming through me. Now, often life gives you twists and turns, as indicated in this story called Fatima, the spinner in the tent. Once in the islands of the far west, there lived a girl called Fatima, and she was the daughter of a prosperous spinner. And one day the father said to her, come, I have some business in the islands of the Middle Sea. Maybe we'll find a suitable young man who we could take as a husband. Because in those days, that's what a woman had to look forward to, a marriage in good position. So they traveled on, and unbeknownst to her, her karma was not good with the sea, because a typhoon came up, shipwrecked, and everybody was lost at sea, including her father. And except for her, hanging on to a piece of floating flotsam and jetsam, she was cast up on the shore near Alexandria, utterly destitute, physically exhausted, psychologically freaked out. And while she was wandering on the sands, a family of cloth makers, they saw her, took her in, and basically taught her their craft and she got relegated to a new life, you could say. And within a year or two, maybe she was reconciled to what happened. But then one day when she was playing on the seashore with her friends, a band of slavers came from Istanbul and took her, sold her at the market. Oh, she bitterly lamented her fate, but what could she do? Now that her world had collapsed for the second time, there were people at the market who looked at her and said, wow, she looks so dejected, this poor girl. And one buyer thought, maybe if I make her a serving maid for my wife, she'll have a better life than if she ended up as like a sex slave or something like that. So that's what he did. He took her home. And he was a maker of ship's masts. But when he got home, he found out that his whole fortune had been lost and pirated at sea. So he had to fire everybody else in the shipyard, which left him, his wife, and Fatima with a hard job of making ship's masts. Well, she worked so good, so well, that in a year or two, he said, you're not my slave, you're my partner. So now she had another life. And then he said, listen, we have a cargo of ship's masts, you got to take them to Java as my agent. So off she went, but again, she didn't understand that the sea and her karma with the sea, not so good. And another storm wrecked the sea, killed everybody else, and there she was thrown upon the shore in China. So she looked up at the sky. Why? Why every time I try to get my life together, something happens? Why me? But there was no answer. So she walked inland. She stumbled into a small town by the Chinese seashore, and what she didn't know was this, that there was a prophecy in China that one day a foreign woman would be produced at court who could make a tent. And since to that day there was no tents in China, everybody looked upon the fulfillment of this prophecy with the liveliest anticipation. And it happened to be one such day when she wandered into this town where every year they sent heralds all around the city to find out if any foreign woman come here who could make a tent. And through an interpreter, they spoke to her and they took her to the emperor. And the emperor said, lady, can you make a tent? And she said, I think so. He says, I'm the emperor of China. I have every single resource possible. What do you want? So remembering her life with her own parents as a spinner, she said, I need some flax. We don't have anything like that. So she found something to utilize in exchange, and she made a tent cloth. Then she said, I need some ropes. And he said, we don't have anything like that. So remembering her time with the weavers back in Alexandria, she found some hemp and she made some ropes. But you just don't tie the tent flaps down. You have to have a pole in the center to stick it up, right? So she said, I need tent poles. I said, we don't have anything like that. So remembering her life with the mast maker in Istanbul, she cunningly made stout tent poles. And then she racked her brains for the memory of all the travel she's done, and she came up with a great design and made a tent. And lo, when the tent was made, the emperor of China freaked. He says, lady, you can have anything you want. And she chose to marry a handsome young prince, where she stayed in luxury and finery, surrounded by her children and grandchildren for the rest of her life. So the moral of the story is what seemed to be a horrific, catastrophic experience at one time turned out to be one ingredient in the making of ultimate happiness. What seemed to be an unfortunate experience at one time in her life turned out to be an essential ingredient in the making of her ultimate happiness. So hang in there, friends, with patience and hope.